This an all-out blitz, real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Houston Texans, what up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
Hey!
Hey everyone, welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Briggs, and as always with me, I got my amazing trio introducing the guy who pisses everybody off on Twitter and in the Twitter spaces, like always, is VT. Say what's up to folks.
What's going on, guys?
And on my other hand, I got my A1 since day one, from the very beginning, Mr. Crenshaw.
What's the deal?
Guys, we got a special guest in the building once again. If you watch his YouTube videos, you see his great, breakdown of NFL films. We love him here at the Texans Fan Battle. We got Mr. Brett Kollmann. How you doing, Brett?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, man, pleasure's all ours. Are you liking the off-season so far?
Well, I'll be honest. We don't really get to the offseason until June.
Right,
draft season starts immediately, and then then we're doing like Dynasty Fantasy and OTAs in May, and then June we finally get to sleep a little bit, and then it starts back up in July.
Sleep. You can sleep when you're dead, right? Isn't that what they always
Basically,
say?
yeah.
So, hey, that's how it is with us. Always grinding. Well, guys, let's start off with some Texans news. There's been some rumors, so maybe Brett, you can kind of put some insight on there. There's a lot of talks, possibly after the draft, Nick Caserio is stepping down or being let go to join the Patriots. Did you hear anything about this today?
Not necessarily about this. I have heard that, like, within the building, there was some disagreement about, the coaching search, and there was different camps about who should have been hired at head coach. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure which side Caserio fell on that in terms of whether to hire D'Amico or whether to hire another candidate. If there was any sort of difference in the building that would cause him to step down, and again, I don't know anything about that, like maybe that would be it, get through the draft and then step down. But I want to emphasize, I haven't heard anything about him stepping down, but if there was a reason, potentially it would stem from regime change when it comes to coach.
Okay. Crenshaw, I knew me, you, and BT were quickly to text about this. What's your thoughts about it?
I think if the rumors are true, why wait after the draft? Why not do it now? What's the holdup? I would hate for him to get let go because he was brought into a bad situation and he cleaned it up pretty good. So I think right now we have the money, we have the draft picks for him to show his true, ability. I guess I could say at least the rumors now isn't as bad as the rumors we heard 2-3 years ago. So I guess we say these are good rumors and bad rumors at the same time. So I can say that. But I hope it's not true, man. Get a guy a chance, let him and D'Amico work together, and we can see what's going to happen.
All right, BT.
Yeah, I had my love and hate relationship with Caserio, depending on the day. But the thing is, I don't want him to leave because who's going to replace him is really the question. And, we've had such bad management for quite a long time, whether it was Jack Easterby, Bill O'Brien, that the fear of the unknown is really bad, frankly. I don't want him to go. And I was in the mindset, these are just more garbage off-season rumors. These don't mean anything. And then I reached out to the 3 people that I usually contact for different information. Usually they have some decent thoughts about stuff, and none of them dismissed it. And that was a scary part, because usually when I asked them, hey, what about this rumor? Is there anything up to it? They'll say, oh, don't worry about it. It means absolutely nothing. This is just garbage. They did not dismiss it. So that's the worrisome part. So I hope at the end of the day, they don't actually let Nick go and they resolve their issues. But as of now, we're in limbo.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope it doesn't go. I mean, like Greg Kershaw said, he's slowly getting us out of the bombshell of what you call Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson. So let's let him keep cooking and see what happens. Speaking of cooking, there's rumors of the Texans possibly moving from 12 to 3. Brett, I'll start with you again. Is this a possibility? And if so, what's the percentage of you seeing it happening?
It's possible. I would be interested to see what the price is, because I know that there's other teams that want to get up to 3 for a quarterback, and they're going to be willing to pay a pretty hefty price. Assuming the Texans are taking a quarterback at 2, whether it's Young or Stroud, whatever, it doesn't even matter. Let's say they take a quarterback at 2. That means if you're going up to 3, it's probably for one of Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, right? Are you going to spend the multiple first-round picks that it takes to get up there and outbid all the teams that are trying to get Anthony Richardson at 3? Are you going to spend that many picks to go up to get an edge rusher in one of the best edge rusher classes in 12 years, when if you really wanted to, you could stick at 12 and take like Lucas Van Ness, right? So it's possible, but I don't necessarily think it's likely unless they have an absolutely astronomical grade on like Will Anderson.
Okay. All right. Well, Crenshaw, the Cardinals should give us some a discounted price for that D-Hop trade, right? So, what do you think about it?
I don't think they should move up to 3 at all. I mean, just stay where you at. I mean, you can move down from 12, but don't move up to 3, because, like Brett said, what's going to be the cost? And I think the cost is going to be a lot. They're going to try to railroad us, and I'm not with that. Now, some VT said in our text message, I'd rather move up in the second early because it's more value there, and he's right about that. So they didn't stay put. I don't care if it's for Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. And the way they talking, Jalen Carter's going to fall anyway, so you might get to stay put and get him anyway. So that's my take on it.
All right, VT, what's your rant, bud?
Well, I mean, you just heard my take from Crenshaw. Thank you very much, Crenshaw. But I mean, the thing is, it is possible, right? Because if you look what Nick has done, he moved up to get Mechie. He moved up to get Nico Collins. So it's not like he's scared of moving up. And now that he actually has the most resources out of any other NFL team in the league, could I see it happening? Yeah. Do I want it to happen? No. Like Crenshaw was saying, I prefer to move up in the top of that second round. There's a lot of guys in that second round that I like. Possibilities of dudes dropping like Darnell Washington, JMS. So there's multiple dudes there that I would rather have than giving up draft capital to go from 12 to 3.
Right. And like Brett said earlier, the edge is so dominant in this draft. I mean, you can get a good edge in the second round as well if you don't want to spend it on the 12th pick, or if you trade back whatever pick you get out of it. But yeah, I would tend to agree with you guys. I'd rather just stay and cook what you got. Speaking of trading or the first round of the draft, the rumors are that we might not even take a quarterback at 2. Brett, what would you do? Would you take quarterback at 2? Would you go Will Anderson? What do you think about these rumors of the Texans not getting the most needed position in the NFL?
Yeah, that one I don't buy.
Okay.
I think they're taking a quarterback at 2, or if the quarterback that they really want at 2 isn't there at 2, I think they trade down and they auction off. Like let's say Bryce Young goes 1, they're really high on Young, they're not as high on Stroud. Again, I don't know that. And let's say they want to move down a couple picks. Like you can auction off number 2, get assets, still get a quarterback that they like at a more appropriate value. Would I advocate doing that? Probably not. Like if I was running the team, I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably just take one at 2. But I don't necessarily fully buy they're not taking one at all, because next year's quarterback class with Caleb Williams, Drake May, they're not going to be bad enough to take one of those guys. Like they have accumulated enough talent at this point where like last year was the bottom.
And the division is so poor. I mean,
yeah, last year was the bottom to me. Like they're not getting Caleb Williams. They're not going to be bad enough to get him. They're not going to get Drake May. Like the Bucs are probably going to be bad enough for it, but the Texans have, unfortunately or fortunately, too much young talent to get a quarterback next year, realistically speaking. So you might as well do it now.
All right. Before I move on to Crenshaw, Brett, there's a question for you. Would you ever want to move to Texas to work for the Texans in the future, like you've done for the Chargers this year?
I mean, it would be fun. I would absolutely consider it. I'm sure my wife would have something to say about moving to Houston, though. So you'd have to talk to her first.
BT, I'll kick it off to you. What do you think?
So, I mean, I think that the obvious choice is to get quarterback, and I think that a lot of it, we're obviously all on Texans Twitter, and we know that there is a significant portion of the fan base that doesn't want to get a quarterback because they either don't believe in these quarterbacks or they want to give Davis Mills another chance. And I think that a lot of this is hopeful, wishing that we don't get a quarterback, and then the other half is just fear that we'll screw up the draft as we've done multiple times before. I think at the end of the day, we'll end up with either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. I think if they don't get either one of those quarterbacks, then my hope is that they're going to, there you go, I was just going to say it, Anthony Richardson, because I believe that he has a high ceiling. Either way, I think that you really do have to get a quarterback high at 2. If they try to drop and play the board, I think you risk not getting a quarterback because Anthony Richardson could be gone at 4. So where are you going to drop to? So if they try to walk away without a quarterback at all this draft, it would be a huge mistake, in my opinion. And as Brett said, I don't think we'll be in position next year. We can win 7 games. If you win 7 games, we could be picking at the 13th overall pick or even a little later. And if you're picking at 13 or 15, trying to move up with even 3 first-round picks is going to be difficult when there could be teams at the 8th or 9th overall pick that will be able to give 3 first-round picks. So I think that if we had Lovey and Pep here and, we didn't have, some of the pickups in free agency, then I could kind of understand it because Lovey and Pep obviously were not the greatest coaches. And so, we wouldn't be able to win as many games. But with D'Amico here, with Bobby Slowick here, with the new change, with the new zone blocking system, all these new scheme changes, I don't think we're going to suck. I think we're really looking at a 7-win team here, and we'll be out of position to get Drake May, Caleb Williams, even Quinn Ewers, frankly. So I think we have got to take a quarterback this class.
Crenshaw, I know your answer, but talk to the folks that don't know.
I mean, you got the number 2 pick. You got 2 quarterbacks that's going to be there. One's going to fall. You take the quarterback. I don't care what the people say. You get the quarterback. You got to have a franchise guy that the city could get behind, the players could get behind. We've seen bad quarterback play here for the last couple of years. I know we have still a lot of Texans fans that believe in Davis Mills. And, I mean, you have the right to do that. And if he's that guy, he go in training camp and beat out the rookie and claim your position. But right now, we cannot draft a quarterback because I would be pissed off. You know what I'm saying? I'm paying too much money for these season tickets to watch another Davis Mills show anyway. So get your quarterback. You got your new coach. Like VT said, you got Bobby Slowick. Let's work this position. Let's get it right. And we can win some games. And, like you said, we're not going to be bad enough to pick high. And why would you want to use all the ammunition just to move up next year where you could get other value in players and everything? So get your quarterback. Stop overthinking the Texans like you always do for the last 20-some years. Let's make it right.
Right. Don't pull another Javion Clowney and Mario Williams, even though that panned out for you.
Yeah, it came. It was right for us, but we made the right pick right there.
Right. But well, let's keep it on some draft talk. But before we get a little big. Brett, I want to get your hot take of the Texans draft. What do you think is going to be the greatest thing the Texans do with this draft? Besides, of course, getting a quarterback at 2.
If Bijan gets to 12, I think they take Bijan. Not that they don't love Dameon Pierce, but
Okay.
It's one of those where it's like, if you got a vet, but you got an opportunity to get a Lambo, you go get the Lambo, right? And I mean, I'm not going to say no to a backfield with Bijan and Dameon Pierce, right? So if Bijan's there at 12, I think there's a very legitimate shot they take him.
Do you feel like he will not be there at 12? Do you think somebody would?
If he's going before 12, I think it's to Philly at 10. But if he gets past Philly at 10, I think Bijan at 12 is a much more realistic option than people realize.
Oh, okay. So bypass the whole receiver route and just take Bijan. Okay.
I think because Bijan can be a receiver too. I think that's a big thing here.
Well, you already got some fans upset. No, Brett, you were the chosen one. I was about to say you made a lot of Texan fans happy. I see a lot of people I've seen some mock drafts having the Texans picking Bijan at the number 2 spot. So I mean, I'm pretty bold. But let's talk some X's and O's. Out of this receiver group in the draft, who do you think could be actually the best X receiver in this draft class? Because there's a lot of small framed receivers this year. So do you see one that could be the guy?
I still think, despite the frame, I still think Zay Flowers could play X. Because you're asking somebody to go beat press, and people say, he's small, he's going to get beat up, and it's like, well, you can't beat him up if you can't touch him. So, even though he's 183, Tyler Lockett's been put on line of scrimmage and said, go beat press, and he's done it. So, it's not as big a deal as I think, people make of it. Size, when it comes to receiver, for me, I don't necessarily care, except for when it comes to durability. Like Tank Dell at 166, I'm not worried about him getting open. I'm worried about if he gets crushed over the middle, is he going to die? Like that's my question with Tank Dell. It's not about ability, it's about durability.
Right.
And Zay, he's got almost 20 extra pounds of armor on him over Tank Dell. So not only have we seen him beat press, like on tape, he beats press all the time. Like you could put him right on the line of scrimmage at X, he'll be totally fine. But he's got enough meat on the bones where if he gets hit, he's not going to get turned into a fine pink mist. So I feel pretty good about Zay Flowers at X, really wherever you want to take him.
All right. BT, I know you had a question about some X and O's. Why don't you go ahead and shoot it?
Yeah, I got a few of them. So my first question is about D'Amico Ryans. So a lot of fans, even myself, were kind of celebrating when Lovie Smith was fired because of how he performed last year, right? But when we started digging into what D'Amico Ryans ran, and trust me, I love the pick of him as head coach. Some of the things I don't actually know if from a scheme standpoint are going to be dramatically different outside of disguises. So we know that he likes cover 3 a lot. We know that he only plays man around 20% of the time. He blitzes around 23% of the time. And a lot of people are looking, okay, let's see if he's going to take what he did in San Francisco and just bring it to Houston. But even in San Fran, he ran nickel defense like 70% of the time in 2021 and then switched it up to about 50% in 2022. So in your head, based on the roster we have now, and then, obviously you're having a decent draft, what do you think a D'Amico defense actually looks like, particularly with Stingley, Christian Harris, those particular players, those young players that we have out there? How does a D'Amico defense look?
A D'Amico defense is going to look like whatever he thinks his personnel does best. And I find it really funny that, people always clown on Lovie. It's like, we just run cover 2. And it's like, well, who ran the most cover 2 in the second half last year? San Francisco, by a lot. You know why? Because they had Fred Warner. So it's like you can get away with running cover too if you have that kind of linebacker. And so I think if D'Amico wants to do that same type of thing, like he needs to get a Mike who can get depth, which there are some in this class that can do that, and you can get them on day 2. But like, would D'Amico have run that much cover 2 in San Francisco if he didn't have Fred Warner? Probably not. He's going to do what his personnel allows him to do. So if he feels like, he's got a bunch of man corners in Houston and he wants to let Sting just man up all day, he'll let Sting just man up all day. If he feels like, say we live better in quarters, he'll live in quarters. If he thinks, we really need to have a single high structure with a post safety there to protect the middle, he's going to do that instead. If he needs to blitz more, he'll blitz more. If he's not getting pressure with 4, he'll scheme it up. He's the type of coach that if something's not working, he's not going to rigidly say, well, I don't have the guys. He's going to be like, well, what can my guys do? And that's what makes him a good coach. And that's why I think this is absolutely going to work.
Okay. You got another one, BT?
Yeah, so let's go to the other side of the ball. So let's talk about Bobby Slowick. So Bobby Slowick is what everyone's hoping is that he's basically replicating what was done in San Fran as well. Now we're talking about 2 different quarterbacks, right? We're not really talking about Levis or Richardson or Hooker. We're really talking about Stroud and Young. That's everything that we're hearing from the reports. So is there really going to be a big difference of how the offense looks scheme-wise, whether we have Young or Stroud? Or are we looking at mostly a very similar scheme?
I don't particularly think there's going to be a big difference, truthfully, because they can both run everything, that you expect to see out of that type of system. The bootlegs, getting a quarterback out in space. He's not going to get involved in the run game like they were trying to do with Trey Lance. Keep in mind, I was at 49ers camp last year when Lance was getting starter reps, and it feels like 40% of their plays were quarterback runs. Like, they're not going to do that with either of these guys. But in terms of like all the quarterback movement stuff, in terms of all the RPO stuff, they're both going to be just fine at that. I know people have concerns about, can Bryce Young see over the offensive line? Like, you do realize Bama's offensive line's like 6'5". Like, he was fine in college. And I think he has a very like Drew Brees-ish type trait where even if he can't see a window, he's very good in terms of anticipatory throwing. And Brees, like, half the time when he would throw over the middle, he couldn't see it, but he was so good at reading defenses and had such a good processor that he would anticipate the window and throw it to a spot. And he was always right. Bryce Young plays with that same kind of anticipation and processing speed and everything like that. So, like, all the quick hitters over the middle, I'm not worried about Bryce Young's size hitting that. All the quarterback movement stuff, I'm not worried about Stroud. Like, they're both fits, honestly. And I don't think you can really go wrong if you want one or the other.
All right. Crenshaw, I know you got some. Here's with it.
I mean, well, I was going to ask him about Bryce and CJ, but he basically answered that right there. What I could say, do you think Bryce could play on the center?
Yeah. I don't think he'd have any problem with that, even though he didn't do it as much. Again, this is going to sound like a really weird way to frame this, but when you look at how he operates in the pocket under pressure, right? Like, jerseys flashing in front of his face, people pulling him down, and then how quickly he's able to reset his eyes down the field and locate where a safety is, locate windows. He sees things so quickly that if he can do it under pressure, I'm not worried that if he has to turn his back into a run fake, that when he turns back around, he can see and locate quickly. Like, if he can do it when somebody's trying to kill him, he can probably do it at the beginning of the play too. So I'm not super worried about it. Again, even though it's not something he's done all the time, he's so smart and so special between the ears that I think he'd be fine.
Okay, so for the Texans fans that's listening and watching, can you tell them, like, the good traits about Bryce Young besides his size and everything? Tell them why he would be a good fit here in Houston.
Accuracy, poise, how just cool under pressure he is. I was at Bama against Texas in Austin in September, and there was 110,000 people in that stadium. I was in the lower bowl. Up to that day, that was the loudest stadium I've ever been in my life. Now, I broke that record 2 days later because I was in Seattle for Russ's return, and they almost liquefied my organs with how loud it was there. But up until that game, that was the loudest stadium I had ever been in. I couldn't hear anything in the fourth quarter. It was just a wall of sound. They set an attendance record at that game, and that's Texas. And the fact that I couldn't hear anything, so I know he definitely couldn't hear anything. You're down late in the fourth quarter, protection's breaking down. I mean, the Texas defense was just feasting all day long. They were playing like they were out of their fucking mind. And for him to still march down the field, even when everything was going wrong around him, and win that game, I was like, yeah, that's the guy. Doesn't matter how much noise, doesn't matter what's going wrong, doesn't matter the pressure. He's just stone cold, man. And I think that that's a special trait that most quarterbacks don't have.
Agreed. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got a couple for you. I know these guys love the offensive side of the ball, but I love the defensive side of the ball, so I'm going to keep it on the defensive side. Now, earlier you mentioned D'Amico having a Fred Warner linebacker. Who in this draft do you see being that type of player? Do you see a Henley or an Overshown being that type of linebacker for the Texans?
In terms of everything that Fred Warner does, like not just the coverage stuff, but also being able to play the run and everything like that. There's only one linebacker in this class that has the full Fred Warner package, not just the coverage Fred Warner package, and that's Jack Campbell from Iowa. He has incredible size-speed combination. He's 6'5", 240, one of the freakiest athletes at linebacker to come out in the last 10 years. His RAS score is like off the charts. But beyond that, even though like athletically he compares to like some of like the big hulking but like raw linebackers, Jack Campbell's not raw. You know, he's very well developed in terms of technique, in terms of how quickly he processes. I don't want to say he's like the perfect linebacker, but I mean he's
a
really
perfect
special.
linebacker.
he's really, really special. And I would take him in the first round. But because he's a Mike linebacker, he's not gonna go as high as he probably should. But if we're just looking at like big boards, like players that you are most sure are going to be good in the NFL, he's way up there for me.
Okay. All right. Now, I do believe we need another corner. Who would be your sleeper in the late round cornerbacks that you would go out there and grab if you were the Texans?
Ooh. Okay.
I know
Well,
I'm putting you on the spot, Brett.
starting right now, so we got Nelson and Sting. If I'm trying to think of like a later corner that I would maybe like Keitrell Clark from Louisville.
Okay.
You know, he's somebody who, again, you know, some people project him more as a nickel. I really want to see how he holds up outside first, just because he has so much good tape outside. Same thing with Clark Phillips from Utah. Again, he projects more as a nickel because of his size, but we've seen him put out so much tape outside that I at least want to see if he can survive there first. And if we need to kick him inside, we will. Now, the Texans have a million different nickels. They don't need a nickel. But, you know, in terms of like day three corners, like that's pretty much what's available. So, you know, you just got to try it. If we're looking at day two corners, like Julius Brands from Kansas State, I would for sure look at. Even if we're looking at 12, you know, if they want to go after it early, like Deonte Banks, Joey Porter, pretty much any round you want to look at, there's corners available. This is one of the best corner classes we've had in quite some time. So they don't have to take one early, but they definitely could.
Okay. So I keep, every time I talk about the draft, I keep comparing it to the 2011 draft. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. It's great and positional talent.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you look back at that 2011 draft, if I recall correctly, it wasn't like the most stacked quarterback class. Like it was like Cam was there, and then it was like Jake Locker, Christian Ponder. Like it wasn't even that good of a quarterback class. And what really made 2011 legendary was the pass rushers. It was the receivers. It was, everything but quarterback.
Line. Right.
Line. It was everything but quarterback. And I think that this class has an equal, if not deeper, edge class. They have an equal, if not deeper, corner class, a better tight end class, an equal, if not better, running back class, and a better quarterback class. Like Cam was better than all the guys coming out this year. But like in terms of depth, like there might be like 4 starting quarterbacks in this class. There was 1 in 2011. Right. So it might be better than 2011 in a different way, but it might be better.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see what the Texans do with it. I have a lot of guys. I know we can't draft them all, but man, I love a lot of these prospects. They are so talented. Just like you said in the edge, I have like 8 guys I want to take, but you can't always get what you want. Well, guys, we're going to move to the fan favorite of the show, is where we ask you a question. Brett, let me show you a video real quick. So who is Brett? So I'll kick it off with Mr. BT. Ask Brett a question about himself.
Well, yeah. So my questions have to do with not just yourself, but how you made a living off of YouTube, et cetera, and things like that. One of the things I've always wondered is, I understand that you get your film from NFL Game Pass, or at least what was Game Pass, now NFL Plus and all that stuff. But they take away your monetization. I remember you saying that in a Reddit thread a long time ago. I've been watching you for like 5, 6, 7 years now, so I forget how long ago that Reddit thread was. But you did say that you relied on Patreon and other things. But you still do rely on YouTube. I understand not the monetization aspect. Do you feel like there's a threat of that you do rely a lot on YouTube? Because we see what's happening out with Twitter right now, with so many people that utilize Twitter to drive traffic to their particular sources, and Elon doing what he's doing. Do you feel like you have to have some sort of backup in case something happens to YouTube?
It's an interesting question, because yes, but also I don't know what that backup would be, because other platforms don't offer the same type of monetization capability that YouTube does. Like you can't make money on TikTok like you can on YouTube. And that's kind of a common misconception, is like TikTok doesn't make any money. Like and like you don't get any sort of like legitimate rev share from TikTok. Like you can get brand deals, but brands wised up a long time ago that TikTok doesn't actually convert. So the brand deals dried up for the most part on TikTok. Like that's why a lot of TikTokers then went to go make YouTube channels, because that's the only way to really make money. Like you can do it on Instagram still to a degree, but less so now. And so there's not really a backup plan to YouTube. And it does make me uncomfortable, full disclosure, that like the entire creator economy rests on the shoulder of Google. But unfortunately right now there's not really a better option.
Have you thought about something like Vimeo or something else where I guess it's not really Patreon, because you have people have to pay to see it, right? Like if you want to monetize it that way, but obviously your base wouldn't be as big. But I guess that's an option. I mean, I'm assuming you researched a lot of different options, but are you basically saying that there's just nothing equivalent, so it's YouTube or bust?
Well, the hard part is because I use footage that I don't own, I can't put it behind a paywall or I get sued.
Oh, gotcha.
So wherever I post my work, it has to be public so that the NFL can monetize it.
Gotcha.
Which is why YouTube works, because the NFL can just monetize it themselves through YouTube. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to work out a licensing deal. They just get their ad revenue and they go about their business and they're happy. And then I get my sponsor revenue or Patreon or whatever. But like Vimeo, to my knowledge, doesn't offer that kind of capability. So they would just take it down. Instagram, same thing. TikTok, same thing. Like, I get away with it on TikTok, but believe me, if they could take the monetization, they would, you know? So it's a tough thing because right now YouTube is the only real ecosystem there is that is monetizable for me from a brand deal perspective, and B is monetizable for the league so they don't sue me into oblivion.
Right.
Okay.
That they will do, you know. All right, Crenshaw, what about you, bub?
I got two. One, besides yourself, who was the best person to come out of California State? And
Ooh.
what was the first video you ever done?
So first video I ever did, it was if I recall correctly, it was a Melvin Gordon scouting report in like 2015, and that video I didn't even really think people would see it ever. I made it as a proof of concept for my producers at NFL Network when I was there, and I did like 5 or 6 of those. Where again, I didn't think people would see it. I just was making it for my producers because I wanted to show them segments that I didn't even want to do at NFL Network. I wanted LaDainian to do it, or I wanted like Willie McGinnis or like whoever. Like I didn't want to be the on-air talent. I just wanted to produce it, but I needed to show them an example of what I was thinking. And ironically, like that eventually ended up being something that they did make after I left NFL Network, but with other people. But like that was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And I look back at that video now and like the production quality's fucking horrible, but like that's where we all start, right? Like we all have to make terrible stuff so that we can eventually make good stuff because you got to get in the reps. And I look back now and like I laugh at it because I'm like, God, I thought that was good to post. But like 8 years ago, I was like, that's the best I can do. So yeah, that was a long time ago. And then in terms of, besides me, of course, best best football talent to come out of Cal State Fullerton. So I will say, I'm going to go with coaches. Back in the mid 80s, when Cal State Fullerton still had a football team, on the same staff, same coaching staff, they had Steve Mariucci and Hugh Jackson at Cal State Fullerton, believe it or not. So I'm going to go with Mooch.
Okay. Mooch, all right. I only got one question. I know I'm lame, not like the other two, but if you could have 4 players that you could have at dinner, past or present, who would they be?
Ooh, I go with JJ. I would go with Brady.
Okay.
I would go with, oh man. Honestly, I'd go with Arian too, just because I think he'd be great conversation for sure. Arian's awesome. Everybody loves Arian. And then for my last one, I'm trying to think. Let me see if I can go way back. Who would I want from like the way back? Probably like Reggie White. I think that would be fun.
Yeah. All right. I like it. Any more questions before we sign off, fellas?
Yeah, I have one last question. What was the one play that you witnessed last year that you were throwing your hands in the air saying, what were they thinking?
Oh man, there was a lot. There was honestly a lot. So I was in Buffalo for Packers Bills, and the Bills were like in complete control of the game. That was like the first Sunday game in Buffalo or Sunday night game in Buffalo in like 15 years. And so the atmosphere was awesome. Tailgate was great. And like Bills had that game well in hand. And then all of a sudden Josh just started just doing the most random bullshit turnovers and just throwing the ball to the Packers. And that was one where I was like looking at EJ and I'm like, what's he doing? What's going on? Like they're up by like 15 points. Like, what are we doing here? And man, I've never seen a more nervous stadium ever than like the second half of that Buffalo game, because they had waited so long for like a good Sunday night game and they were starting to blow it. Eventually they recovered and won, but yeah, that like third quarter of that Buffalo game was crazy, and I still don't know why Josh Allen does that sometimes.
I thought you were gonna go the route of the Texans going for 2, but that's a good answer too. But,
to be fair, why do the Texans do anything that the Texans do at this point? So
Brett, you hit the nail on the coffin. Yeah. Chris, anything before we let Mr. Kollmann go?
No, that's it.
All right, like my boy Crenshaw says, this is the worst part of the show because it's the end. Brett, why don't you tell the listeners where we can find your great stuff and what you got cooking?
Yeah, I got interior defensive line rankings coming out pretty soon here, and then edge, and then linebacker, and then DB. That's going to be over on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Brett Kollmann. I got another project with the Chargers coming out this coming week, and then another one with the NFL coming shortly after that as well. So lots coming, and then I'll be in Kansas City for the draft, and then maybe by June I'll get to sleep.
Well, we will be in the draft at the draft as well, so we might have to link up and buy you a beer or something for coming on the podcast for us.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, Crenshaw, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me at 5'4" Crenshaw everywhere.
Everywhere. And VT, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at BrownChubbyBear. You can find my latest articles at fanbattlesports.com. Got it right this time. And if you're watching this on Facebook or another platform, check out the YouTube channel, Texans Fan Battle Podcast. I've got some of my latest VT rants, which Landry Locker told me to rebrand, so I'm thinking about it. The two latest videos, one of them is the 2021 draft grades and whether Davis Mills should get another chance. So check that out on YouTube.
Yeah, so please subscribe. We would definitely like everybody to do that. Guys, you can find me at A1 Day 1 Texans. And like VT says, I've been writing some articles myself. I'm not as good as Brett, but I am doing some defensive rankings for the draft. So don't judge me. I'm not the
dude,
professional
you should have seen me 10 years ago. I thought Christian Hackenberg was a good prospect. So believe me, you can't possibly be worse than I was.
All right. We all can hope. All right. And you find the podcast at Texans Fan Battle everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Until then, guys, you have a wonderful night. And Brett, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Brett. Really appreciate it.